I finished Wild as the Witch as my first actual novel for this year, and this is, I would say it's somewhere between young adult and new adult, because the character is 18, and she, Iris, is out of school, and she now has basically a full time job working with her mom at a wildlife preserve, and she's best friends with the wolf. And her co-worker Pike is a year or so older than her, if that. And this is kind of an enemies to lovers situation. And I really liked this book. I did like the world building around the witches, in that there was three different types. They could basically influence mainly humans, mainly animals, or mainly plants. I do wish we would have gotten a little more on that, at least for the humans and the plants, because Iris is one who can influence animals, as is her mom. And so the story starts with 2 years ago in the prologue, and you find out that her best friend Amy, who is also a witch, had a boyfriend who was not, and so they decided to make him what's called a mage, which is where a witch awakens a regular human's sense for magic. And the problem is, when this happens, the mage wants to pull all the magic particles that are near to themselves, and this will cause them to burn up. And unfortunately, this is what happened to Amy's boyfriend, and so her and Iris are put on trial, because Iris was with them in the same beach house, but they went out on their own, and so through this trial that's found out, and she is basically found to be completely innocent. And Amy, of course, was not, because she did knowingly do this, and since he did die, she does wind up going to jail. And then you go to 2 years later, and you find out that Iris's father has left her mother, and that now Iris and her mother are living somewhere in Washington State, taking care of these animals at the refuge, and they're hiding that they're witches, because after everything that happened, Iris lost a lot of friends, so she's now very standoffish about that. And then in this, Pike is an intern at the refuge, and he is going to school to be an ornithologist. And I believe it's that he says he wants to specialize in birds of prey, and so he volunteers there as a way to work on credit and kind of learn more for his future. And he kind of needles Iris a lot and gets under her skin. And then when he sees the news story that Amy is getting released early, he makes the comment that she should have been the one to burn. And of course, this really upsets Iris, because of everything that has happened, and just she didn't like him to begin with. And so her grandmother taught her that if you need to work through feelings, you can basically cast a spell and bind it to these herbs and then burn them and release your feelings along with the spell, and the spell or the curse won't hurt anybody. And so Iris decides to make Pike become a mage, because he hates witches so much. What's the best punishment? And unfortunately, an owl swoops down when she goes to bind the curse to the herbs, and it gets bound to him instead. And because this owl is sacred to witches, he will amplify the curse, if he dies, to where not only Pike, but everybody in who knows how many square miles will also be affected with it and all be put in danger. And so, of course, Iris needs to unbind the curse from the owl, and before she can, he flies away. And thankfully, she doesn't have to tell her mother what she's done because the owl was part of their sanctuary. He had a broken wing that they were trying to heal, and he had gotten out of his cage a few weeks before, and they had been trying to catch him. And now that he's over the boundary, Iris simply tells her mother, hey, I want to try to catch him. Can I follow him? And she says, only if you take somebody with you. And of course, that somebody has to be Pike. And I really like once they get into tracking him and camping. At one point, Pike is making cheese sandwiches, and he makes the comment that, I noticed Iris that you never eat meat, so I wanted to make something that's vegetarian friendly. I just thought it was very sweet that he happens to notice this and accommodates it. And then he also introduces her to potato chips on sandwiches. And this made me laugh because one of my friends that I work with, whenever we buy a sandwich from our little canteen at work, we always buy bags of chips as well to put on the sandwiches. And just the thought that, somebody experiencing that for the first time made me laugh. And so then, eventually, of course, Pike finds out what has happened and that Iris is a witch, as she's been trying to hide all of this because she knows he dislikes witches and everything. And once he finds out, he is rather upset, but he does still care about her. And then, through various things, they wind up finding the owl, and the owl's about to die. And so Pike makes the decision, just direct the curse to me, to unbind it from the owl, bind it to me, that way only I'm in danger. And then you also find out a little bit before that why he hates witches. His little brother had cancer, and there was a witch who said she could cure him, took all his parents' money, and just left. And then, of course, unfortunately, the little brother died. And so this is why he hates witches. But he does eventually wind up coming back to not, because originally him and his brother thought magic was the coolest thing, and so he's trying to recapture that. And I just love that throughout all this, he never really leaves Iris behind. He always cares about her, and even when they argue, he still makes sure she's safe. And then there's also a scene where they wind up having to share a tent, so it's kind of like there's only one bed, except there's only one tent now. And the world building in this is actually pretty good as well, because, on top of finding out there's 3 different types of witches, and they affect the 3, humans, animals, or plants, you also find out that if magic is used on a human, they will automatically know because all they'll be able to see is starlight. You also find out that magic is basically just like matter. It can be neither created nor destroyed. There's magic particles everywhere, and witches can simply sense them and move them around, rearrange them to perform extraordinary feats. And there's some really good quotes as well in here, and I just really enjoyed it. It's a really fun romance/adventure story, and I read it pretty quickly. It's relatively short. It's only 108 pages, or I'm sorry, 308 pages. And I did enjoy all the characters. The enemies to lovers I thought was done really well, and both Pike and Iris get a lot of characterization. They get a lot of great interactions, and you can tell how much they both just love the wild and nature and wild animals. And so if you like something that's a little older, young adult, it could possibly be considered new adult, but it's clean. I would definitely say give this a look. It's pretty much contemporary. I would say maybe even magical realism. And I hope you enjoy it if you do pick it up. If you have any other recommendations that are close to this, let me know down below in the comments. And I will see you all next time in the book cave.